This morning, I awoke to find that my son had made a big mess. Muddy footprints had been tracked clear through the house. I went through nearly a whole roll of paper towels trying to clean them up. My son Wilson was normally very clean. His bed was made every morning and his items were always in their place. Really impressive stuff for a teenager. Evidently though, he had gone out last night and returned home with muddy boots. I've got no idea what he could have been up to. The tracks went right up the stairs and into his room. As I entered his room, I saw mud-stained clothes on the floor alongside a pair of muddy boots. The boots were mine. The clothes were actually mine as well, and while I was initially going to let this incident go without any fuss, the fact that he had used my clothes and my boots had me reconsidering. But it is what I found in his closet that made me really worried. I opened the closet door to find a pile of bones. It took me a few seconds to process all of this and realize what I was looking at. They were human bones, no doubt about it. Why did he have these here? Was my son some sort of murderer or sick criminal? I settled on waiting until he got home to confront him about the bones. The hours ticked by slowly, but I eventually worked up the resolve to pull the bones from the closet and place them into bags. They couldn't just stay in the closet after all. I used a pair of gloves and I began gathering them up. There was nearly an entire skeleton in there. When it came to the skull, I was hesitant to touch it. But after a moment, I picked it up and I examined it. Holding a human skull made me feel uneasy, but it also fascinated me. I turned the thing over in my hands, looking at it from different angles. As I was getting ready to set it down, the skull emanated a deathly wail that chilled me to the bone. I stumbled backwards and I fell on my rear, dropping the skull in the process. You. The skull spoke with a sinister whisper. Its voice was inhuman, the voice of something dark. What the hell? I stammered in fear. The skull was talking now. The skull spoke once again. Do you know where your son is right now? Wilson, well, he's at school. I answered nervously, and I moved back away from the talking skull. The skull roared with laughter, an eerie, creepy laugh that lasted just a little bit too long. I was bewildered and confused, but coming to terms with the fact that this skull was talking to me. It felt like a dream, but I was certainly awake. Let me tell you something. Your son, well, he's not at school right now. Your son is in a dark place. If you want to save him, then you have to listen to me. No, he's at school, and he'll be home soon. What are you? And what do you have to do with my son? The skull let out another cackle. Wait and see. He won't come home. But I know how to save him, and you're going to have to listen to me. I ran out of that room and I slammed the door behind me. I could hear the muffled laughs of the skull through the door. I grabbed my cell phone and I dialed his number, but there was no answer. I sent him dozens of texts asking where he was, and if everything was okay, but there was no response. Time nearly came to a stop and my worry continued to grow. It was about 8 o'clock that night and my son was still not home. It wasn't completely out of the ordinary for him to come home late, but he always answered his phone. I was incredibly worried, but I couldn't call the police. I don't know what Wilson had gotten himself into, but if it was illegal activity, then I wasn't going to get him sent off to prison by calling the cops. I opened the door to Wilson's room, to see that skull still sitting there on the floor with assorted bags of bones next to it. It filled me with unease, but I was determined to save my son, even if it meant working with a talking demon skull or whatever it was. The skull spoke first. Do you understand now? If you want your son to be saved, you're going to do what I say. Please, please don't hurt my son. What do you want? I've got some unfinished business here. Get me in those bones in the car. We're going for a ride. I did as instructed, and I packed the rest of the bones into the bag. I threw the bones into the trunk. The skull I was forced to bring into the car with me so I could hear his commands. That shovel in the shed. You are going to need it. I reluctantly obeyed, and I went off to the shed to grab the shovel. It had fresh dirt on it. Wilson must have dug this thing up from somewhere and brought it home. But how that led to his disappearance was still a mystery to me. With everything packed, we took off into the dark night. I had no idea where we were going. The skull would tell me where to turn around after a while, and we pulled up to a shabby-looking house. Before I could ask what was happening, the skull talked to me. There is a boy inside. You need to kill him. Give him no mercy. Kill someone? No, I can't kill anyone. No, I can't do it. That's insane. There's gotta be something else that I can do. That boy inside is not innocent. If you want to save your son, then it must be done. Kill him. I hesitated for a long time. We sat in silence while I pondered what to do. I still had no sense of what was going on. Where my son actually was remained a mystery, but I was determined to save him at whatever cost. This boy, you say that he's not innocent. What has he done? The skull let out another cackle. He has ruined the lives of many. He is still young, but he must pay for what he's done, and you're going to be the one to do it. His parents are not home. Break inside and get it done. Bring him to justice. I've got no weapon. How can I even trust you? I said. It was the only resistance that I could muster at this point. It was crazy, but if saving my son meant killing another kid, then I would do it. He was not innocent anyways, according to the skull, though the skull could be lying. I had no idea if I could trust him. The skull's jaw moved and out came a voice. It was the voice of my son. Help me, Dad, please. This was enough to persuade me. The voice returned to its original, inhuman voice and the skull spoke again. Only I know where your son is. Get it done. Get in there. If you need a weapon, then take the shovel. With no words, I got out of the car and I opened the trunk. I grabbed the shovel and I closed my eyes, preparing myself for what I had to do. For my son. It's for my son. I said in my head again and again. I approached the window and I lifted the shovel, bringing it back. I then swung and I shattered the window. Glass shards flew inside the house as I carefully stepped inside through the window. I could already hear his movements from upstairs. The kid was probably in a panic. I ran upstairs towards the sound. I nearly tripped and fell going up the stairs. When I made it upstairs, I found that the door was locked. I moved back and I rushed forward, hitting the door with my shoulder. The door barely moved. I tried using my foot to kick the door in, and though it took longer than I wanted, the door eventually gave out. I found the kid cowering in the corner of his room. He was a teenage boy, roughly the same age as my son. The kid tried to flee, but I grabbed him with one arm and I threw him to the ground. The adrenaline surging through me was unbelievable. The kid finally spoke. "Mr. Mangrove, what are you doing? Why?" He was crying now and sobbing. "I'm sorry, kid, but this is for my son." I yelled at him as I raised the shovel. "No, Mr. Mangrove, your son. But before he could finish, I brought the shovel down on his head. He tried to raise his head after that one, but I kept on swinging like a madman. I had to do this, I told myself. It was for my son. I didn't stop until bits of brain were spilled out onto the floor. The kid's head looked like a smashed pumpkin, and the realization of what I had done finally dawned on me. I returned to the car in a trance. Somehow I had not been caught by anybody, it seemed. Blood stained my clothes, but this was necessary. I opened the driver's seat and I took my seat, remaining silent. "Looks like you did it. Don't feel bad, he was nothing but a waste." The skull attempted to reassure me. "How did he know my name?" I asked. "That's because you've dealt with him before. Are you ready for the last destination? A little more and your son will be safe." My son will be safe is all that I needed to hear from him. I drove off once again to the final destination, following the skull's instructions. To my surprise, we pulled into a cemetery that looked a little too familiar. "So now, what do you want?" I asked the skull in a weary tone. "Are you starting to remember yet?" The skull inquired. "Remember what? I don't know what you want me to remember. My son better be safe or you're getting the same treatment as the boy you just made me kill." The skull laughed again. "Just pick me up and grab my bones. Don't forget the shovel." I did as instructed, and as we walked through the dark cemetery, I could only feel a sense of deja vu, like I've been here before. The feeling made me incredibly uneasy as we approached a group of grave markers. "Now you need to put me back so I can rest," the skull said. I barely heard what he even said to me. My eyes were fixated on the grave marker, as terror and sorrow filled my body. How could I not have known? On the grave marker was something that I never wanted to see again, but having seen it now, everything flooded back into my memory. Wilson Mangrove, March 3rd, 2004 to January 14th, 2019. Tears welled in my eyes as I began to remember everything. The bullying my son received was vicious. I had tried to stop it, but I hadn't tried hard enough because I found my son hanging from a rope in his bedroom one day. I looked at the skull with tears in my eyes. "Wilson, I'm so sorry, son. I'm sorry I couldn't help you." I fell to the ground and I wept. My son didn't have to say anything else. I picked up the shovel and I started digging. The earth was soft and easy to remove thanks to last night's digging. I opened the casket again and I placed my son's bones inside. "Goodbye, Wilson," I said as I began to close the casket. In my son's voice, the skull spoke for the last time. "Thanks, Dad. Don't bring me back again. Let me rest." I will, son, I replied. And with that said, I closed the casket on my son. This would be the last time that I see him. I returned home and I wrote all of this out. It's only a matter of time before the police catch me for this heinous murder. If they don't somehow, well, then this will serve as a reminder so I don't go digging again.